Takže, vážení přátelé, já vás vítám, já jsem to počítal, tohle je, myslím, 21. SEOloger, nebo byli jsme, že 25, já jsem něco nenahrál, máme jich 20 nahraných, totiž. A je to první SEOloger po prázdninách a já jsem strašně rád, že Robin přilétl až z Kanady. Nebudeme si omlouvávat, že přilétl jenom kvůli nám, ale
samozřejmě.
Když už je tady, tak já ho nám vítám. Kdo z vás Robina znáte, nebo jste o něm slyšel? Ruku nahoru. Jarda.
Tolik?
Takže Robin žije už dlouho v zahraničí, dělá tam aktuálně SEO pro EA, EA Sports, se jmenuje oficiálně, nebo jenom EA teď?
Electronic Arts, EA Sports je subdivize.
Jo, takže což je docela zajímavá práce. Pokud jste někdo byl na SEOlogeru naživo, tak tam měl už jednu přednášku, kde se rovnával, jak funguje SEO u nás v Kanadě a ve Spojených státech. Bylo to jako hodně zajímavý, ta přednáška je na webu SEOlogeru, se když tak podívejte. No a my jsme se domluvali, že by tady vlastně nám udělal přednášku na téma, o kterém byl článek. Ten článek hodně zahýbal s odborným světem, byl třeba odkazen k důsledku vozu, ransomware věnoval na Twitteru a spoustu zajímavých lidí, takže si myslím, že to bude zajímavé. Takže pokud jste ten článek nečetli, tak určitě tohle pro vás bude zajímavý. A já si myslím, že i Robin potom může odpovídat na nějaký dotazy.
Cokoliv.
Co se dotazů týče. Opět, tady jsou kluci a teďka E-Visions nebo E-Visions? E-Visions. A protože to nahráváme, tak aby tam byly i ty vaše dotazy. Když budete mít dotaz, tak prosím vás, zkuste nezapomenout a zvedněte ruku, oni přiběhnou s tím mikrofonem, aby ten dotaz byl na té nahrávce, aby tam nebylo ticho a pak najednou Robin začne něco odpovídat. Jo, takže to je za mě všechno, já teďka Robinovi předám slovo a já, jak jsem říkal, celý to bude v angličtině, protože Robin dlouhodobě žije v zahraničí a tam angličtina je pro něj přirozenější jazyk než čeština. Takže díky moc.
Jo. Já bych to jenom upřesnil, pro mě to přirozenější pro pracovní věci. Za posledních 5 let jsem nemluvil česky pracovně, takže to by byla taková kombinace češtiny a angličtiny a to by neznělo dobře. Nechci przdit náš jazyk. Okay, structured data, voice search, AMP, natural language processing, RankBrain, what else? Machine learning. All of those are really sexy topics. Everyone wants to talk about it, everyone wants to do those things, everyone wants to kind of write articles, read about it. It's great, it's very exciting, there are a lot of exciting stuff in it, but if you don't get the fundamentals right, if you don't have the foundations on which you can build your site and your ranking, then those things will not work. And I have seen many e-commerce websites and large enterprise websites, and the basics like crawling, indexing, and rendering are often overlooked and not in the best state for sure. In the case study or the numbers I'll be showing you, I'll be mainly talking about crawling and indexing. Rendering wasn't an issue because it was server-side rendered website, so no problem at all there. But if anyone wants to talk about single-page application, JavaScript SEO, and those kind of things, I'm more than happy to chat afterwards because EA developers are quite happy building JavaScript websites, so definitely a lot of stories to share and chat about. Come on. So first, to give you a little context, MEC or Mountain Equipment Co-op is a Canadian outdoor retailer that has over 5 million members. To give you a little bit more angle into it, Canadian population is not large. There are only 35 million of people in Canada, so about 14-15% of Canadian population are MEC members. And the brand is quite well known, especially on the West Coast, and it often wins awards such as Best Canadian Brand of the Year, Most Trusted Canadian Brand of the Year, because outdoor industry is big for Canadians. There's huge nature there. They sell gear and clothes for all outdoor activities, including skiing, snowboarding, climbing, cycling, mountain biking, water sports. I'm pretty sure I forgot something, running. And MEC has a lot of brick and mortar stores scattered all over Canada, but also they have a big e-commerce website, and that's something we will talk about. if you talk or work on e-commerce website, your main KPI should be revenue. There is no discussion what else it should be. In 99% of cases, there is no excuse not to work towards revenue. It's nice to increase your visibility, your ranking, your clicks, sessions, unique users, all of nice things, but all of those should lead towards improving revenue and getting more money out of your website, unless the business model is slightly different. This chart shows the revenue from organic traffic to PLPs. It's a product landing page or category page. So it's not overall, it's not the entire website, it's just revenue from organic traffic to that part of the website, that part we were focused on. The goal of our campaign or our effort was improved revenue from that part without hurting or stealing traffic and revenue from other segments of the site, because it wouldn't make sense just to transfer the traffic from one page type to another. You can notice towards the end of the year, it's basically second half of 2016 right now, and towards the end, that's the Christmas. That's not a miraculous SEO campaign or anything. It's just Christmas and people goes crazy. The red line is revenue from 2017, and you can already see that there was a decent improvement. In the 3 weeks period at the beginning, if we compare summer 2016 and summer 2017, the increase in revenue was about 23% from organic traffic to category pages. And during the Christmas time, the year-over-year improvement in revenue was almost 55%. So you always want to deliver a great result during the Christmas, because that period can win or lose the entire year, all goals and targets. And as I mentioned, this is without stealing organic traffic to different pages. So this is just pure new revenue stream. And the great thing is we stayed strong even after the Christmas time. And at the beginning of 2018, the revenue improvement was almost 75%. How we achieved that? What we did different? What we did so special? Honestly, not much. It was just getting the technical aspects right. We cleaned up the mess. If you want Google to kind of rank your site, Google needs to understand the structure. Google needs to understand the pages you have. If Google is lost, Google loses confidence in your website. Then you will see a couple of examples, then you will see all weird thing. We have achieved that without adding no single line of content to PLPs. So it also shows that content is not everything. You need great content, also you need great structure, and your website needs to be really easy to understand to search engines. This is a chart from Google Search Console, and it shows the number of indexed pages by Google. At the beginning of 2017, the site had over 500,000 URLs indexed. Towards the end of the year, there was only 80,000 of URLs. So, cleanly speaking, we removed 80% of index pages from Google and saw massive increase. Vast majority of those removed pages were useless PLPs, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. How did we know there is a problem? What kind of indicated that we need to do some cleanup, some removal? We ended up on the ratio between the number of index pages and the number of pages that drives organic traffic. At the beginning of 2017, not even 9% of index pages had driven organic traffic to our website. So what about the rest of 91%? Why Google was crawling those pages if they were useless and not visible in search results? Once we did the main cleanup, the ratio improved to almost 50%. So 50% of index pages is driving organic traffic. This is not a perfect number. It still can be improved. But with regards to the nature of the business, we can't aim for 100%. that's out of the discussion. Because MEC provides a lot of seasonal gear. They have snow sports, skiing, and on the other hand, they have water sports and camping. So there is always time of the year where a certain category is not searched for. No one really cares about skis in May. So the number we were kind of aiming was about 60%. Everything over 60% would be great. I don't have more recent numbers because I no longer work there. We had two main problems with the site, and the first one were query strings, aka URL parameters. URL parameter is basically everything after a question mark. It's a set of key value pairs. This is a URL path for trekking poles. Trekking poles are, if you go for a hike and you have bad knees, you are getting old, you are using those poles to help you walking. That's trekking poles. This URL, there is nothing wrong with that. The URL could be better, but it's not hurting us. No problem there at all. The only problem there was that we had a lot of parameters that were not consistent. There were a lot of parameters appended after that URL path, and all of them were discoverable, crawlable, indexable by Google. And also we had kind of fluid order of those parameters, so it was quite a mess. And to be accurate, we found that about 58 URLs of that same page could be discovered easily by Google. There were links in the code somewhere. So that's definitely a problem. You want to be consistent. You want to provide one URL for one piece of content. If you don't provide one URL for a piece of content, you need to manage it somehow. You need to use canonicals, redirect, or something like that. As you can imagine, nothing was in place. So Google could crawl, index completely everything without any direction and without any sense of direction. What we ended up with, that Google didn't really understand what should be in the search result. The value was diluted. And when users searched for trekking poles, even though we ranked in the search results, the search result was for ski poles, which is totally different product. And you can imagine that the click-through rate wasn't pretty good about it. Once we finished with our cleanup and little delay, Google sorted everything out and understood that this is not the best result from our website. Google realized that we have a page about trekking poles and then start providing the trekking poles in the search result, and immediately our ranking improved significantly. And last time I checked 2 days ago, MEC was ranked #1 for that query, just because we did cleanup. There was no other change. To get control over the parameters, we needed to understand all parameters we use on the site and what they do, why we use them, why they are there. There was a little problem because most of the development team has changed over last year. So not even developers were completely clear what certain parameters stand for. So we collected data from multiple sources and extracted parameters from there. We used Google Analytics, we used Google Search Console, we use logs, we use Screaming Frog and crawls and multiple other sources, and basically just got those massive lists and extract parameters, created a huge table, and tried to get sense of what each parameter stands for and what's the value for the website there. Once we had that huge list, we basically asked two very simple questions. First, does this parameter change content seen by the user? If answer was no, then that parameter shouldn't really be discoverable, crawlable, and indexable. That parameter, in theory, should not be there at all. There are better ways to implement tracking. If the answer was yes, then we asked another question. Is the change significant? Does it add a unique value? The definition of significance and unique value is a little bit tricky, and you need to define it based on your website, on your end. For us, significant and unique value was really refining the query, not only a sorting. Sorting for us wasn't significant change. So if the change is not significant, then that parameter should not be, or that URL with that parameter should not be discoverable, crawlable, and indexable. If the change is significant, if the parameter provides unique value, then it should be discoverable, crawlable, and indexable. This may be slightly different case by case. This worked for our website. Every website is in slightly different stage or life cycle. And that's the decision process or decision-making tree for us. Does this parameter change the content seen by the user? Yes, no. If yes, is the change significant? There are as you know, there are two very powerful tools you can use to manage parameters and provide insights to search engines, how to treat them, what they stand for, and what they do. It's Google Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools. Both are really powerful, but I definitely recommend using them. But for me, it's really just short-term solution. You can do it quickly because changes in the code takes time, especially on big websites. So jump into Google Search Console, configure parameters, but then work with your developers, engineers to kind of adjust the code of the site based on your needs. It takes a little convincing, but it's definitely doable. Most of the developers are really keen to help if they understood why you need to make that change. There is something I want to emphasize. Even though it may look that Google Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools provide the same tools, those tools are slightly different. Google Search Console gives you option to stop crawling a URL that contains a parameter you configured. So it will stop crawling. If Googlebot finds a URL that includes or contains that parameter, the URL will not be crawled. With Bing, it's slightly different. If a Bing bot discovers a URL that contains a certain parameter, Bing bot will remove that parameter and then crawl that URL. It's a small change, but sometimes, especially for bigger sites, it may change your setup. It's really something that you want to keep in mind and before you start configuring it. In most cases, it's fine to use the same configuration for both, but really be mindful of that. And the second troublemaker is faceted navigation. That's troublemaker for almost every e-commerce website or large site. And it's quite rare to see the implementation getting right. That's MEC website. In left-hand top corner, you can see a category tree over there, and then we have refinements over there, faceted navigation, brand, gender, price, and there were a few others. When a user wants to just select just certain brand of the tracking poles, user will tick a box and the content and products will change. If a user wants to see two different brands at the same time, user can tick another brand and the list goes on. This is really great feature for users because it really helps navigating and sorting and getting the information they need and the product they need and they want to discover. However, it usually creates tons of combinations, tons of different new URL. This is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. It's great because it creates tons of very important landing pages, like black diamond tracking poles. That's definitely something you want search engine to see, crawl, and then rank. However, price ranges, star rating, that's something that's really useful for a user, but not that important for search engines. So you need to make sense of it. And for our example with tracking polls, there were 3 brands, 4 genders, 4 price ranges, 4 ratings, 13 colors altogether, almost 2,500 of URLs, which for one product, one type of product. That if you have this for your entire site, your crawl budget goes out of the roof and the crawl efficiency will not be there. The changes will take forever to be discovered by search engines. If you change the price, Google will not see the change of the structured data because the pages will not be crawled enough. So internally, we introduced 2 concepts, 2 ways, facets and filters. For a user, there is no difference between a facet and a filter. In this example, brand and gender are facets. Price is a filter. Design-wise, no difference. Functionality, no difference. But code-wise and how the site reacts in the code, that changes. So let's take a look on differences and our definition of facets and filters. Facets are discoverable, indexable, and crawlable. Facets include self-referring canonical. Facets adds a subfolder into URL. And facets are not discoverable if multiple items from the same facet are selected. For example, if you select 2 brands, then that URL should not be discoverable, crawlable, and indexable. Filters are not discoverable and not indexable, but filters for us were crawlable. For one simple reason, Google already crawled those URLs. Those URLs were already indexed. So if we just blocked crawling of those URLs, then Google would never see the no index tag, which we appended to every filter URL. I've seen this mistake quite often when you prevent crawling and then you are hoping that Google discovers no index tag. It doesn't really work that way. And all the filters were using URL parameters that were configured in Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools. As I mentioned, there is no simple solution, but we tried to break it down and again kind of came up with the simple decision-making tree and a couple of questions that should help us determine if a refinement should be a filter or facet. First question, does this refinement add value to user? If answer is no, then it shouldn't really be on the site at all. Like, of course, we run some UX test if users just don't see it or if they don't find it valuable, but in most cases, those facets that were not used were not because of bad UX, but those filters or refinements were not interesting enough to user, so we got rid of them. If the answer was yes, if the refinement adds value to user, then we try to figure out if there is a search volume for this refinement, if there is a potential to drive organic traffic. We didn't do it for every single item on refinement. We didn't do it for every single brand, but we are looking on it holistically. Like, does a brand modifiers provide value from search engine? Is there potential to rank? Is there potential to drive traffic? Is there a search volume behind that? If answer was no, then we created a filter. Filter, for example, were jackets below $200. That was something for us that there was not enough reasons to make it visible and keep it visible to search engines. If the answer was yes, that there was potential and there was search volume, then we created facet. Facet is, again, discoverable, crawlable, indexable. Filter is just, it's not discoverable and it's not indexable. It's just crawlable. As I mentioned, there is no simple solution how to deal with crawling, indexing. It really depends where your site is in your life cycle. If you have a site in staging environment that hasn't been seen by Google yet, then you can just block crawling most of the site, most of the parts you don't want Google to crawl, and then you are fine. But if there is a history, if that site has been up and running for multiple years, if Google had discovered those URLs, then you can't just simply block crawling. You need to really work on different solution. In different solution, one could say that we should have used canonical tags instead of no index. Yes, we tried that, but it didn't really work because at the time there was a lot of messy signals and Google didn't really took into consideration those canonicals. That solution didn't work, so we needed to force Google to remove those URLs. We probably lost some value, but at the end of the day, that was the only solution that worked for us. And yeah, with preventing crawling indexing, it's really up to you what direction you will go. If you use canonical in HTTP header or in the code, no index, no follow, robots, JavaScript, whatever. Tons of options, and really depends on your situation what you want to use. Well, if I'm talking about crawling and indexing, there is no way not to mention logs. How many of you really use log files and analyze log files? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. OK, 6. Perfect. Better than in Canada. No, seriously. I had one hand only. And that was me. I think logs are extremely underrated and people should be using more often. It's the only source of truth how Google sees your website, what requests are being made. So let's go through basics a little bit to get everyone up to speed, and then I'll show you a few examples what we have done with logs. A log file basically records all requests and responses made to a server. It's a ledger that records everything. It records all interactions made with the server. And you can find there both visits from users and search engines, bots, crawlers, whatever they are. When I want to talk about logs more, most people are kind of afraid of working with logs. I don't know why. It's pretty simple. It's not really hard. Honestly, the hardest thing about log files is getting access to it. So go to your developers, engineers, operations, and make friends. Explain why you need them, that it can also help them to save bandwidth, and then they'll be happy to provide you. But yeah, you don't need any mathematical formulas or programming language. It's just working with tables, basically. When you open a log file, you will see something like that, which doesn't really make sense, so let's dissect that. This is one line from a log file. This is one request. So let's take a look what's inside. First, there is IP address. It says who. Second, there is a timestamp when the request was made. The third is access request, what was requested. In this case, it was contact page. Status code result, 200 success, 301, 304, 400, 404, 500, whatever there. Size, byte transfers, referral URL source. If you are looking only on requests from bots, from Googlebot, Bingbot, I think even ZÁZNAM bot, it will be blank. It will be empty. If you are looking at users and user interaction, then there will be URL path of the previous page. Basically, the step before user got to that page. And the last one is user agent. That's the signature of usually of the bot. Before you dive into logs, you should come up with the right questions, with the questions you want to get answer for. If you just dive there and hope that it will reveal something awesome for you, you will get lost quite easily. Come up with basic questions, get answer for them, and I guarantee you will find more questions than answers. It's a rabbit hole usually. And you can get from there, you can start with basic questions like, which search engines crawl my site. Which URLs are crawled more often? Usually you want kind of your money-making pages to be crawled more often. If there are any weird URLs that you are not aware of or should not be there. You can also kind of take a step back and look at page types. How often is certain page type crawled, like category pages of or product pages? You don't want Google to be focused only on certain segment of your site and kind of overlooking the other section of the site. Which status code are returned? And then, out of curiosity, if Googlebot sees a lot of 404s, it's super simple to get a table with a list of URLs that returns 404, and if you order them by number of requests, you have prioritized list of URLs you should either recreate, redirect, or deal with them. For a large website, that list can be infinite, so you really want to prioritize somehow. I don't want to give you kind of rundown of pros and cons of each tool. That's not this talk about. If you understand basic principles, you will be able to use any tool of them. It's really up to you what tool are you familiar with, comfortable with. You can start with Excel. If you have huge data sets, you can use even MySQL, BigQuery, Tableau, or some more advanced tools that are dedicated or developed for log file analysis, like Screaming Frog, etc. There is a difference between access to static files and real-time. Static files, basically, you bother your developer every single time you want a refresher or new data. With real-time access, you just open the environment and you select the date range you want to analyze. Because you can analyze requests that were made 5 seconds ago. It's pretty cool. My favorite tool for that is Kibana and ELK stack. You can find really invaluable information there, and it can provide many answers to your questions. But again, regardless of the tool of your choice, if you start looking at logs in any of those, I'll be happy. Yep?
You mentioned Kibana.
Yep.
I just want to know what type of dashboards or information you have set up.
Yep.
And what are you used to check, I don't know, maybe weekly or monthly, or what's your routine in Kibana?
Yeah, sure. The reason why I treasure Kibana is mostly answering my questions. Like if I see a specific problem in mind, the tool is really flexible and I can build a report on the fly in 5 minutes and get my answer. That's the reason why I really like it. But in terms of dashboards, I have a couple of them created, and those ones are really just high level. To be sure, I see certain spikes in crawling behavior, some differences. For example, if the number of requests to certain page type has increased, then I want to see why. Have we made any changes in the site structure that would kind of encourage search engines to do that? What crawlers are hitting the server? Googlebot for desktop or smartphone? Are we in the mobile first index or not yet? Another question. Is there a sudden increase of 404s, 500s? And really, I'm just looking mainly for Googlebots because that's majority of our revenue. 95% of revenue from search engines for us comes from Google, so we spend most of the time on it, trying to come up with, mainly activity, frequency, number of requests, top 20, 30 URLs that are kind of requested by search engines as well to see if there are any changes and the different page types. I'll show a few other analyses in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, it can answer any question you have. As I mentioned, I'm a big proponent of Kibana, but in last year or so, I started using Power BI quite often. It's extremely powerful because it allows me to connect logs with other sources of information. And that unlocks different level of insights. If you have just logs, information in logs are great, but are limited. And if you can merge it with other data sources, you have Christmas. The things I'll show you can be done and do for you some page tools like Botify, Deep Crawl, and those kind of things. But sometimes you don't have either budget or time to onboard those tools, paid for them, or you don't have both. With Power BI, you can have those insights today if you are really keen. And yes, there are definitely other tools that can do it. Tableau, it's really a matter of your choice and tool you are comfortable with. For me, it's Power BI. This is an example. This is not example from MEC. I don't have already those files, but we did something similar. This is how we connected multiple data sources. It's probably hard to read, so there are 7 data sources. Five of them are quite important, 2 of them optional. The main one are log files with all the information there. Then we have crawl data from Screaming Frog, Search Console data, from Search Analytics reports, so impressions, clicks, CTRs, Google Analytics data for organic search. Then we have the sitemap, and then 2 extra reports. The crawlers, they're just for me because I don't want to be reading Mozilla 5.0 and those kind of user agents. That data source for me translates that user agent string to a more human description like Googlebot desktop. And if you are showing those reports to someone, they don't really want to read user agents. You want your reports to be really easy and digestible. You don't want to scare people. And last source is pre-rendering. This report is for single-page application. We had quite troubles with pre-rendering because we used pre-render IO, but there was some problem with timeouts, local storage. I'm not going to bore you with that, but we needed to monitor if search engines are getting pre-rendered HTML or just blank pages. And kind of example of the reports, I'll provide you a link to the slides so you can take a look on those reports at home as well. This is just a regular dashboard that gives you information just from log files. You have URLs ordered by the number of requests, so you see most pages that are most popular by search engines. And usually there should be pages that generates the most traffic for you. If there are different URLs, you want to know why and really start investigating why Google and other search engines are spending time on that segment. Then we broke it down and divided some table based on storefront, if that part of the website is for UK, US, Australia, Germany. Then based on the language, number of distinct URLs, unique URLs, number of requests, status codes. One of the things I really like about Power BI is everything is interactive. You can really change what you want to display in a matter of few clicks. Here, there is a drop-down menu with the crawler selection. This dashboard is for Google Desktop and Google Smartphone, but you can easily, thanks to the drop-down, change it and select, for example, ZÁZNAM or Googlebot News images, whatever you have in your data set, and everything will recalculate based on your selection. So it's super flexible, and if it reveals some odd numbers, you can really investigate why it happened. You don't really need to use or do another query, build another dashboard or report. You can just select a filter and you are there. It's quite easy, couple of clicks. One of the example of the dashboards, what we are using here with regards to the single page application and the pre-rendering is, as I mentioned before, we want to know if Googlebot and other search engines are getting pre-rendered HTML. In this case, we use 3 data sources. First, log files. Second, crawl data that told us if the pre-rendering was successful or not. And third was just really translation of user agent strings to more human bot description. And in a few clicks, we could see that, no, you can't see, that 35% of requested URLs received pre-rendered HTML. About 9% of requests received not pre-render HTML, just a blank page. And this big part, unfortunately, those ones are missing data. So it's not that pre-rendering failed, but we didn't have enough data to populate. But we could easily remove through the filter that part, and then we would be seeing or either success or failure. It's really up to you how you tweak it, how you select a crawler, with what crawler you want to use. Another example, we were merging log files with sitemaps, and we wanted to see, are the URLs in the sitemaps being crawled? If yes, great. Then we were interested in which one. This is this table, and again, ordered by the number of requests. More important table for us was this one that was showing what URLs are crawled, how often, and those URLs are not in the sitemap. Then you start investigating why those URLs are not in the sitemap and why these are crawled. If you don't have them in the sitemap, they shouldn't be recrawled, or they are not important for you. So you can, again, discover the sections of your site search engine spending your crawl budget on without any value. Another example of the dashboard you can use, or useful information. This is useful for developers. Every site should return consistent information back to crawler. You don't want to be changing status code in over 1 day. This is just 1 day data. And what do you want, or what was the purpose of this dashboard, was to see if really the status codes are consistent over time. You don't want to return 200 in the morning, 404 in the afternoon, and 200 in the evening again. This is not good for your kind of health of your site. The one thing, this site looks pretty well. The only thing it tells us we should be using more 304s. We don't need to resend the entire website all over again. We can just say nothing was modified. You don't need to download it again. You can save bandwidth, and your developers will be super happy about it. Those were just examples. I didn't provide examples how to use or logs with Google Analytics, Search Console, but options are limitless. Really, just it's up to your imagination. You can compare crawl frequency with your rankings. Are the best ranking URLs crawled most often? Are URLs that drive organic traffic crawl very often? You can compare it by page type. You can also compare it by content length. Is longer content or frequently updated content crawled more often? Is URLs with structured data implemented crawled more often? It really depends on the question you want to answer. Just need to be creative. So at the end, I want basically 3 things, kind of 3 conclusions to go with. Crawling and indexing and managing crawling and indexing can drive big gains in terms of revenue, and it's important for every website, but it's critical for large e-commerce websites and enterprise websites. Second is logs are really powerful. Don't be afraid of them. Use them. You can find their information you can't find anywhere else. Google Search Console is an outstanding tool, but it doesn't tell you the full story. The data there's some crawl stats, but in those crawl stats, everything is blended together. You don't know if Google is crawling PDFs, images, URLs. You know nothing, basically. It's just number of requests to everything. And the third one, merging logs with other sources can unlock another level of insights. Really, don't be scared, be creative, put more information together, find the right answers to your questions. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you are interested in the slides, there is a link. It will redirect you to Google Slides. Thank you.
Okay, so anyone has a question?
I got one question actually. Can you explain one more time? Maybe I just skipped that, or maybe I didn't understand. How did you measure actually the length of the characters on your content page?
You can use Streaming Frog.
Streaming Frog is
basically gives you, I think, word count.
And then you will connect it with the log data and etc.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you for your explanation.
Yeah, no problem. You can use scatter plot or some kind of visual elements to see curves or dots anywhere. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
In the beginning, you showed filters versus facets,
Yep.
and you did all filters scrollable.
Yes.
Yes. Does it have some negative impact on curl budget?
At that time, everything was scrollable, so we didn't make it worse. We just wanted Google to discover those no index tag. In the long term, the goal is to kind of prevent crawling of those filters, but at that time, it wouldn't be a smart solution because Google wouldn't discover our other signals. Long-term solution, absolutely agree. Those should not be crawlable, but at the beginning, we needed search engines to run through everything and discover new signals. Yep.
Any other question? No question. Žádná otázka. Nikdo nemá žádné otázky.
Klidně i česky. Klidně i česky.
Otázky můžeme i česky. Nikdo. I po slovensky.
To nevím, jestli dám.
Já ti to přeložím. Tak super.
Super.
Teď díky moc.
Díky.
Ještě jednou.